What's going on?
I'm Detective Fields. Please sit down, Mr. Poe.
Yes, the infamous Detective Fields. Am I under arrest?
No, not as yet.
Then I'd rather stand. It makes it easier to leave.
Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19, 1809, in Boston, Massachusetts. His mom and dad were David and Elizabeth Poe.
When Poe was 1 year old, his father abandoned the family. The next year after that, his mom died of tuberculosis, separating him and his two siblings.
Poe was adopted by a family in Richmond, Virginia, named John and Frances Allan.
After being adopted, his name changed from just Edgar Poe to Edgar Allan Poe.
At the age of 6, his family moved to England, where Poe got to travel to Scotland, London, and Chelsea. Allans moved back to Richmond, where Poe met his sweetheart Sarah Elmira Royster and presumably got engaged before attending the University of Virginia. At the university, he became a gambler and got into a lot of debt, which caused tension between Poe and his father.
Since he didn't feel welcome with the amount of debt he had, he left the university after only a year.
Upon returning to Boston, he found out his love had married Alexander Shelton. 2 months later, he lied about his age and name in order to join the army. He said that he was 22 and his name was Edgar Allan Perry when he was only 18.
That was the time that his publishing career began, when he came out with an anonymous collection of poems entitled Tamerlane and Other Poems.
Poe wanted out of the army, so he revealed his name. He needed to have a waiver signed by his dad, but he wouldn't respond.
Shortly after his mother died, his dad signed the papers, perhaps in sign of sorrow.
Poe got back home the day after his adoptive mother was buried. So he went to live with his Aunt Maria Clem, where he met his cousin and future wife, Virginia Clem.
Poe then went on to attend West Point in 1830, where he tried and succeeded at being kicked out. After leaving West Point, he moved to New York City in 1831, where he had some of his poetry published.
His stories were rejected by magazines, though. His elder brother died of tuberculosis in 1831.
After his death, Poe began a more earnest attempt to start his writing career. But it was a difficult time because publishers often pirated copies of British works.
Alone and with no money or job, Poe was struggling and sent a letter to his father for help,
to which he never received any.
His father then died in 1834 with no mention of Edgar in his will.
Poe finally landed a job in 1835 as a newspaper editor by winning a contest.
After starting his job, he asked his Aunt Clem and cousin Virginia to come live with him.
In 1835, Poe published one of his more major stories, Bernice.
Poe then married Virginia in 1836 when he was 27 and she was just 13.
Poe spent many years bouncing around from magazine and newspaper jobs. He worked at a magazine where he published numerous articles, stories, and reviews, boosting his reputation as a critic.
In 1847, Poe's wife, Virginia, passed away of tuberculosis.
Shortly after, he found out his first love, Sarah, was widowed. So Poe started courting her and then engaged. But life didn't work out for Poe. They were set to be married in October when Poe passed away on October 7, 1849.
Poe passed away in a hospital after being found incoherent near a bar 3 days earlier.
As you can see, Poe experienced many gruesome and tragic events his whole life.
These experiences has greatly influenced his works. The time period during which Poe wrote was considered the Romanticism era.
He was considered a dark romantic because of his gruesome, creepy tales. Without Poe's experiences, his stories wouldn't have been so dark.
By reading the works we have mentioned, we can see that Poe's characters are dominated by emotions. Often, characters are not even named.
Poe writes about settings in far-off places or distant times in the past. Poe's emphasis of literature is on the final effect and the emotion produced, which made him one of the most influential writers. Through tales such as Murders in the Rogue Morgue and Purloined Letter,
Poe invented the modern detective stories. Oh, I'm sorry. Did we scare you? Did you know it's believed that Edgar might have gotten his name after a character from William Shakespeare's King Lear, a play that both his parents performed in?
Poe was never formally adopted by the Allens. He used the fictitious name Henry Le Rennet. Poe was only getting paid $5 per month to serve in the army. Poe started writing short stories after his father passed away and did not leave him anything. Before marrying Virginia, she would carry love notes to his lovers around town.
Who knows how Poe actually died? It's rumored that he had fallen off the wagon and drank himself to death, or he had been mugged for all of the money he had gotten from magazine subscriptions. Or was it rabies? Brain swelling? Nobody knows for sure.
Quoth the raven.